Good day, everyone. Our topic is about SQL procedures, triggers, and functions. What is SQL? SQL is a programming language that is widely used to manage and manipulate relational databases. Over time, various features have been added to SQL to make it more powerful and versatile. So in addition, SQL means structured query language that provide a standardized way to access and manipulate data stored in a database. And it is used by the developers, database administrators, and other professionals to perform a wide variety of tasks including inserting, updating, and deleting data in a database. And next, SQL procedures, triggers, and functions are all database objects that can be used to manage and manipulate data in relational databases. However, there are some key differences between them: the procedures, triggers, and functions. First, SQL procedures. SQL procedures are a set of SQL statements that are stored in a database and can be called repeatedly by other SQL statements. Procedures are a way to encapsulate complex logic and business rules that are used throughout an application or database. By using these procedures, developers can simplify their code, making it easier to read, debug, and maintain. And this can result in more efficient and reliable database applications. The second one is SQL triggers. SQL triggers are pieces of code that are executed automatically in response to certain events, such as the insertion, deletion, or modification of data in a table. And when we say SQL triggers, it can be used to enforce business rules, maintain data integrity, and perform other tasks that require automatic execution, and they can help to ensure that data is consistent and accurate, and improving the overall quality of the database. The last one is SQL functions. SQL functions are procedures that are designed to return a single value. They can be used to manipulate data, perform calculations, and return specific values, such as the result of a mathematical equation or the current date and time. And SQL functions also used to provide a way to manipulate data, perform calculations, and return specific values. They can use also to simplify queries, reduce code duplications, and improve performance. What are the differences between SQL procedures, triggers, and functions? SQL procedures, triggers, and functions are all database objects that can be used to manage and manipulate data in a relational database. However, there are some key differences between them, and these are purpose, parameters, execution, scope, and complexity. How the SQL procedures, triggers, and functions important to the IT people? SQL procedures, triggers, and functions are important to the field of information technology because they provide a way to manage and manipulate data in relational databases. In summary, SQL procedures, triggers, and functions all serve different purposes. They can all be used to manage and manipulate data in a relational database. Understanding the differences between them can help developers and database administrators choose to fix the appropriate tool for a given task. And it provides IT professionals with powerful tools for managing and manipulating data in a relational dataset. They can help to improve the efficiency, reliability, and quality of database applications, and are essential components and um, in any modern database system.
They will discuss about the SQL triggers. So before we start, we must first understand what is SQL trigger. So what is SQL trigger? So SQL trigger are the SQL codes that are automatically executed in response to a certain events on a particular. So these are used to maintain the integrity of the data. So to have a further understanding, so there is a illustration. So So supposedly, no, there is a registrar who every day record every new students. So every new students, he records their informations and send them a reply that their request is being accommodated or being processed. So one registrar cannot respond directly to 1,000 students one by one. So we put a trigger to the database to directly respond to the students whenever there is a request. So that uh, this is where the triggers are implied to the database to work 1,000 replies to 1,000 requests with a personal or just one employee. So the SQL triggers has the following syntax. So the syntax for the SQL trigger is create trigger, trigger underscore name before after. So these two functions cannot interchange. So before must come first before after, and then insert update delete on table name or the table subject. So for each row, for each column, so this renders the count for the nested tables, and then the trigger body. So triggers has following functions or operations. So first is drop. So when we will use drop, so we can use drop to command to remove a trigger from the database. So its syntax is drop and then the trigger name. And then next is display. So we can use show command to display triggers from the database. And its syntax is in database underscore the name or the data subject. And then the insert. So there's two kinds of insert. First is the before insert triggers. So these are used to update or validate records before they're saved to the database. And then the syntax for this is create trigger, calculate before insert on employee for each row. So for count for each tables. So this is the example of the syntax for before insert. And then next is the after insert. So after insert are used to access field values that are set by the system and to effect the change in other records. So example of this the syntax of after insert is create trigger total mark after insert on student for each row for the nested tables, and then insert into final marks values, so subject new marks. So next is the advantage of the triggers. So the first advantage is to forcing security approvals on the table. Next is triggers check the integrity of the data. Third is counteracting invalid changes. Fourth is triggers handles errors. Last is trigger are useful for inspecting data. So this is an example of a trigger code. So first we create a trigger test. So trigger test, and then we will have an example of a trigger for message. So we'll set our variable character 100. So we'll set our limiter for our syntax output 100. So we have a huge syntax storage. So variable character 100. So first is create a trigger, call my trigger, and then my trigger. So before insert on employee. So this means that before we insert on employee, so an employee is the subject, our subject table. So we'll also call for each row to count each row. This reads for our nested tables, counts for each row being registered, and then insert into trigger test values, added new employee. So every time we prompt new new data of an employee with an attribute, the system will count the data being registered, and then make an syntax output added new employee. So for example, no, we insert in such as an at employee attribute. So insert into employee. So the values are 109, Oscar Martinez, 1968, 0219M, then 69,000. So if we enter these following information to our database, the database will read the following attribute of our registered employee and then make a following message response, added new employee. So this is where the trigger the trigger is being implied to have a response that the employee is being registered while accommodating or having the personal informations being registered. So that's all.
So next is function in SQL. There are types of function in SQL. First is string function, aggregate function, date function, and time function. First is string function in SQL. String functions are used to perform operation on input string and returns an output string. Following are the string functions are defined in SQL. First, the ACI, the function is used to find the ACI value of a character. Select ACIT if thus, and the output is 116. Next is char length. This function is used to find the length of a word. Syntax select char length hello, the output is 6. Next is character length. This function is used to find the length of a line, and select character length angkit dubay, the output is 11. Next is concat. This function is used to add two words or strings. Select angkit dubay from the dual, the output is angkit dubay. Next is lcase. This function is used to convert a given string into lowercase. So lcase angkit dubay, the output is angkit dubay in a lowercase. Next is left. This function is used to select the substring from the left or given size character. Select left angkit dubay 5 and the output is angkit because in angkit dubay, angkit is on the left side. Next is length. This function is used to find the length of the word. Syntax length angkit dubay, the output is 10. Next is the aggregate function. Aggregate function is in SQL is a database management, and aggregate function is a function where the values of multiple rows are grouped together as an input certain criteria to form a single value from the significant meaning. Various aggregate functions are count, sum, average, mean, and max. So now let's understand each aggregate function in the example. You can see the table above. We can see the ID, name, salary. So count that returns the total number of records. We can see there are 6 records. Next, count the salary. Return the number of non-values over the column salary. So over the non-value is 5. So next, distinct salary. Return the number of distinct non-values over the column salary. So can we see the result is 4. These are the example of aggregate function. You can see use angkit, create a table. So insert the following employee values, select from employees, select sum, select count, select average, and select minimum, and select max. In the next slide, we can see the output function. So you can see this is the result of the output function. You can see we select the sum of salary and select the count salary from employee. You can see 10 because there are 10 employee. Next is select the average salary for employee. So we select the average salary is 27,505, and we select the minimum salary from the employees, so we can see the minimum salary is 50. And select the max salary from the employee, you can see the max salary is 60,000, and this is the result we give in a table. So next is date function. In return the name of the day and month as given the date expression. This function is used to add number of days, months, years to the given date expression. By the use of date function, we showed the current date function SQL with examples. SQL date functions now returns the current date and time. Current date returns the current date. Current time returns the current time. Date extract the date part of the date or date time expression. Extract returns the single part of the date and time. Date add adds a specified time interval to the date. You can see in our right side, we can see the example of the date function. Next is time function. The time function extracts the time part giving time and date time. This function returns 0 if the expression is not date time or null expression is null. Syntax time expression. MySQL time format function. A time format functions are a time by specified format. Syntax parameter time format description time require the time to be formatted. Format require the format to use can be one or combination of following. So the function SQL is time format, time format. You can see in our right side, this is the format of the time function. So that's all. Thank you.